Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Breaking Hyman podcast. My name is Morgan.
Lori Amber.
Our guest,
Jme Brock.
So tell us a bit about yourself, Jme. I know you're an artist. You are a musician. What else do you want our audience to know?
That's about it.
That's about it. That's all you
I'm a
are.
grandfather. That's the most important thing.
That grandfather. That's awesome. And do you have two grandkids?
I have two grandchildren. Yes.
Wow, that's awesome, dude.
6 and a 1.
Man, and how I know you're a little bit older than me. How old are you, dude?
I am 51.
51.
My liver just turned 82.
Your liver. Yeah. Maybe you'll catch up with it. So I think I met you for the first time in 2002. Sorry, 2002.
Damn.
Yeah, it was probably at a show or at Perfect Circle Studio, one of those places. Mm-hmm. And you were still back in those days. You were still promoting shows. And tell us who all you have brought to Lubbock.
Man.
I mean, I know some of my favorites.
List has gone on and on and on.
Yeah. When's the last time you've brought any shows? It's been a while since you've.
Yeah, I kind of quit when my daughter was 3, so I kind of quit bringing shows and quit kind of bowing out of the scene in the early 2000s.
Was the Jealous Sound the last show you brought here?
I think that was probably the
I
last.
was at that show, and that show fucking ruled.
Yeah,
that was
probably
a good
one of the
show.
last shows that I brought. Elliott Smith brought tons of bands.
Yeah, Jawbreaker, Jets to Brazil.
Jawbreaker, Jets to Brazil.
Man, that is
tons. The list goes on.
Yeah, well, and what prompted you to start doing that? Because that was back in the '90s. You started doing that a lot.
You know, it was before the internet, and I got tired of driving to Austin or Dallas or wherever to see a band that I wanted to see, and so. You know, everybody complained about how bad Lubbock was, and I was like, I'm just going to make it what I want it to be, you know, and I'm going to save myself some gas, and I'm going to book whatever band I want to book, and that was it.
Did
you
make any money off of those shows?
I never made a dime off a show, and I never tried to make a dime off the show. The whole point was for, you know, being in a band myself and traveling. I knew what it was like, and so... I made sure that every band had a home-cooked meal and, you know, a case of beer and a shower and gave every money that I could to the band. And
that's awesome.
I mean, that was the whole point of it. And at that point, there were a lot of people that were supporting the scene. You know, I'm just lucky from the years that we were doing it. You know, that was kind of when grunge broke. And so it was really easy to pack, you know, 100 kids in to see Bikini Kill in the back of a coffee shop, you know. But since then, it's changed.
No, it really there was a little while even after you stopped booking shows that there was somebody cool that was, I don't know who it was, you probably do, that was bringing some good shows to Jake's for a while. I saw some really good shows at Jake's. Andy Martinez. Okay, all right, I remember Andy. Yeah,
he was bringing Lucero early on.
I saw Lucero in like 2004 at Jake's, and that was awesome.
I watched Spoon-Fed Tribe a lot at Jake's.
I remember. I don't think I ever saw them live, but
that's
now,
a fun show.
If I'm remembering correctly, wasn't you were in a band with Jake Unruh, right? 10K Drive.
Jake.
Didn't Andy and Jake have a band together too?
Yeah, they had a band called Burn the Wagon. Burn the Wagon.
I like that band. I saw them open for Mountain Goats.
Yeah,
and that was a kick-ass show.
Mountain Goats at the back of Space
1110. Yeah. I saw some
venue.
good shows there. Yeah, it's the one thing that really bugs me right now is there's not really good venues in Lubbock, like at all.
Well, you know, when we were younger, we just made venues out of anything. We played the Heidi Ho Burger Barn.
That's
we
awesome,
played, you know, when we went into Einstein's, it was just a laundromat and a coffee shop, and it later turned into a venue. They did so well at that venue, they moved to the Depot, where they became more successful. But you know, we just tried to host shows wherever we could, you know, and make it. And it wasn't just me, you know. There was a group of kids that were willing to do it. Neil Barrett, Mark T. Tons of people, you know. And then after I was doing shows, this guy Kyle rented out a little storage unit out by the Strip. And,
Yeah. Wow.
Did shows, brought Wesley Willis, brought some great shows out there.
I have heard that Wesley Willis came here a couple of times. Did you bring him here both those times?
No, that was Kyle Swash
Okay.
that brought him here, but
Yeah.
I got a couple of headbutts from him.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
if audience is not familiar with Wesley Willis, he was a schizophrenic guy from Chicago. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, you're correct.
He's a huge black dude. But he would headbutt his fans, and I think most people know his song "Rock and Roll McDonald's" from the Super Size Me. But he had a lot of really cool songs, and he had a touring band. He had a handler.
Well, it was just basically a handler, him, and a keyboard when he came here, and it was just him pressing, whatever the track was on the Casio that was already pre-recorded that came with your Casio keyboard.
Yeah, suck a deck dog's asshole, shit like that.
It was just amazing to watch him,
Yeah, I mean, almost like I don't think Wesley had the raw talent of like Daniel Johnston, but he was sort of in that same outsider art kind of thing. Did you ever encounter Daniel Johnston in your bringing shows or anything?
I believe my cousin Stephen Poling had done some stuff with Daniel, and that was kind of his more genre. I was more into the pop punk, genre stuff.
Well, you did bring one of my favorite artists of all time here, Elliott Smith. Was that about 95, 96? You brought him here?
It was right before he had done the soundtrack to Good Will Hunting.
Okay, I think that was 98.
And so we watched him that next year. We went from watching him in the back of a skate park for 30 or 40 kids to watching him up on the giant stage on TV.
In a white tuxedo, losing to the Titanic song. That's insane.
So, it was just neat. He brought this really great band called the Softies with him, and I think they flipped a coin right before they went on, and Elliott Smith actually opened up the show here. So he didn't even headline the show that year.
That's funny. That's really... And I've heard... You have a lot of... I've heard you've had a lot of other stories and stuff about
Jamie's got some stories.
Well, yeah, and I mean you can share as much of or as little of that as you want. But one in particular, didn't y'all bring like a Connor Oberst here from Bright Eyes when he was about 14 or 15 years old?
Yeah, Connor was in a band called Commander Venus, and all those guys went on to do a lot of great things, record labels and bands, and it was actually my birthday that they had come down, and so it was the guys that later turned into Explosions in the Sky.
Okay, cool.
They were living in Lubbock at the time, and before they had moved to Austin.
Yeah.
And so in my front yard is the guys that would later turn into be, Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes, and it was like his first or second time ever drinking, and he got really, really drunk.
Yeah.
But, he's like 15, and unfortunately I let a lot of younger age kids drink at my house.
How old were you at the time?
I mean, you were what, in your early, mid-20s?
I was in my early 20s, but, we had a great game of croquet, of drunken croquet in the front yard. And then the next night we went to El Paso to hang out at the drive-in. So
Holy
it was,
shit.
You had
I was never
the
cool.
Bright Eyes guys, you had,
Explosions
the Explosions guys, and you had at the drive-in, and we went over to Juarez and got
Donkey show.
really drunk off back then you could get 7 Coronas in a bucket for $5.
Oh, dang.
And we watched these girls' dances in bikinis, and Connor had left his very expensive camera outside, and it got stolen.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
of course.
He donated it to Juarez.
I think he can afford a new one.
Yeah, probably now.
Yeah. So right now you're playing drums in a band with Lori's husband. I'll let her kind of take over if you want to.
Sure. I mean, he probably knows a little bit more about it than I do. But
I mean, and I got to jam with you guys a few weeks ago before I had my surgery.
We'd love to have you back.
I want to come out again because I wanted to get back more into music. Yeah, He'll play more music. But yeah, y'all talk about that a little bit.
Andres' Backyard Orchestra, and right.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, did I mess this up again?
Your husband's name. You can pronounce it better than I can.
Andres. Yeah, I practiced a lot. And I had to start over once I got rid of my teeth because it's hard to roll the R's.
Yeah.
But so you're on drums. Andres plays guitar and sings and writes. Brad Bogle is lead guitar and master soloist. Jme's beautiful and talented girlfriend sings backup. Cindy Jeffries, who is a phenomenal hairdresser, and I'm not even going to mention the cat that I see over there.
Oh, and you forgot the grooves.
I haven't done yet. I'm not done yet. Yeah, sorry. There was a cat.
Distracted by
it's
cats.
Over there, yeah.
Always
pussies everywhere. You're about to. Okay. Kitty. Okay, and then, all right, so Clifton Eade, who we had on the show for the Back to the Future.
Kenobi?
Yeah, Cliffy Juan Kenobi plays bass. Hayden plays bongos.
I haven't gotten to see her play with the band yet.
She's amazing.
She is.
She really makes things a lot easier for me just to be able to lay down the backbeat, and she gets to, do all the fancy stuff that I can't do.
That's cool.
So, with their little bongos, and there's much more to her than how adorable she is, but she's freaking adorable.
Yeah, I like Hayden. She's cool.
Yeah, she is very cool.
It's nice to be back in a laid-back band, and that band is, you also forgot Kenny. Kenny doesn't play live shows with us, but he's a huge part of the band.
He is.
And, it's the most laid-back band I've ever been in. I was more into punk rock, aggressive stuff, and it's just been nice to play with those guys and
How would you describe the genre of the band?
It's Americana.
That's what I say, and then I am met with a lot of okay. And I'm like, it's its own.
Like people use the Texas country label more here than Americana, even though it's not. A lot of the covers, Andres is picking out are not artists that are Texas centric. Jason Isbell and Sergio Simpson and stuff like that. But
and Lucero, with your Ben Nichols shirt.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, I love Were you at that show a few weeks back?
I didn't get to go see. I didn't even know the promotion for that show. To me, was really bad. I didn't even know
there weren't as many people there as there have been in the past when he's played solo or Lucero has been here.
Yeah, I had no idea until it was.
Yeah, it was on a Wednesday night too. It was kind of.
I was like, what?
But yeah, it was fun though. I went after doing stand up that night. And
was he drinking
not
usual,
he wasn't shit faced. No, he did not get super fucked up. So
seems like most of the times he comes to Lubbock, he ends up a little drunker than normal.
Yeah,
he's gotten a lot better.
Yeah,
I say that we saw him. It was 7 or 8 years ago on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I've heard about that show. Yeah,
and he was pretty much sober, but he started the show being like, "I'm not gonna pass out on stage this time."
No, I've heard about. I'm not gonna lay down. Show where he was on the ground on the floor.
He laid down and just he was so.
Yeah, well, they're a party, good time kind of band. Sort of like Drive By Truckers used to be before.
Yeah, before they had to commit Isbell.
Yeah, exactly. So back when you were playing in bands. That was kind of your main thing when you were in your 20s. I'm guessing you were a pretty big party guy. That's kind of when I first met you 20 some odd years ago, that was kind of like, Jamie's a crazy guy. Was that sort of your...
I didn't know that.
I never did drugs. I drank a lot. Yeah. And mainly our refrigerator would just be, full of beer. So it was, everybody knew to come to my house. And I always felt bad that once I moved out of that house, no telling the new owners how many times people just walked in, just walked in the house because the door was never locked. It was just kind of people always, coming over and drinking a lot. But I was not a big fan of drugs or any of that stuff, and so I tried to keep that out of my house, but. Occasionally, there would be a band that would come over that would get a little rowdy or do a little bit too much drugs.
Yeah. You ever have to kick anybody out of your house? You don't have to name names. I'm just curious if you did.
I have
get out of my house, Lane Staley. No more heroin for you.
Where were you on that one?
I did. One of my good friends, Marcello Murphy, who owns the Lost Well that's shutting down in Austin. He's got a great metal club that's shutting down. He was the only person, but he had gotten rather wasted, and there was a plastic bucket that he had lit in fire in his room. And was dancing naked, and the carpet was burning.
Wow,
and,
I could see that.
That's kind of when I had said there's not going to be any more drugs in the house.
we really are going to have to draw
Everybody
a
got
line.
mad at me and kind of quit coming to
What
my
an
house
unreasonable
for a while.
jerk.
I know. You're like,
you know.
sit in the crunchy spot.
Wow.
But, there would be some bands that would leave stuff over afterwards, and I wouldn't rebook them after that.
Really?
That I'd find, needles or something
Oh,
in
sure.
my house. So it was, kind of hard on that aspect. But most of the time it was just, drinking stories.
Yeah, that's... And so... How long, I guess, of a period where you said you stopped when your daughter was 3, so going on around a little over 20 years ago. How long prior to that were you booking shows?
I started, so I kind of got into punk rock in the late 80s in high school and tried to make the transition from a metal kid to a punk rock kid.
Right.
And then there was kind of an in-between scene. There was a scene younger than me and a scene older than me. And I could go to both shows. But kind of when the last guy that left, Ron Suman, he had booked Fugazi. He had booked all these great bands. He had tried to bring Green Day twice.
Dang.
But he had brought a lot of really good bands. And he was leaving. He was moving away. And Marcello and a few of us started trying to book shows around town. And the guys from Einstein's basically just said, we'll hire you as a delivery driver and you can book all our shows.
Nice.
And so it was just kind of handed to me.
That's awesome.
To do shows. And I tried to do that and stick with that as long as I could. When I quit Einstein's and Mark Key and Neil kind of had taken over Kitchen Club, I ended up opening up another coffee shop called Renaissance Coffee Shop.
Did you ever go there?
I never did. That was more when I was in high school, so I didn't. I was homeschooled, so I had the lamest existence for a long time.
Well, way to find your way to us.
Well, yeah, and I homeschooled for junior high and high school, so I graduated in 01, and I think it was that year. So a lot of stuff happened in 01. I graduated. My best friend, Jme Brock, that I was playing in a band, no relation to you, he got in touch with Michael Mayer via, I think he got his info from Scott Ferris. Because Scott's like, Michael's more your speed as far as, being inexpensive recording studio, stuff like that. Hey, garage door, it's fine.
Right, yeah.
It's what happens when a podcast studio is in a garage.
Right.
But and I think we toured the studio in late 01, like right after Spilling Poetry broke up, and then I think we started recording. I think our first recording session with Michael was on New Year's Day 2002.
Wow,
nice.
I remember that distinctly, and I think we recorded off and on with him from like January. I think we finished our album in like October, and that is not an album I'm proud of at all. It's pseudo-Christian bullshit. It was me trying to be like, I can be like Jars of Clay or whatever. It was real bad, and my musical taste really like meeting Michael, you, Scott Crater, those guys, like in finding out what kind of music you guys were into, because y'all were all around 10 years older than me or so. I was like, well, shit. And that's when I got into like Elliott Smith and the Weaker Thans and Jets to Brazil and all that kind of Matthew Good, a bunch of artists that I still love to this day.
Yeah.
And that sort of like taught me how to like, this is how you find music. And that was like the days of like Napster, LimeWire, all that
Dude.
shit. So it was really easy to find good music. And now it's like or I would go to like Ralph's when Jake Unruh was working there, and he would, we would talk about music or whatever. So
they'd have something set out for you normally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But
so, and I think, I mean, not to be like kids don't know how good they have it, but before the internet, like I grew up in New Deal.
I don't think they have it good. They have it easy.
Right.
No,
I didn't.
very much easier
true,
to find
true.
music.
Yeah,
So
not
go ahead,
good.
Lori,
You're
sorry.
right. But I grew up in New Deal, and there was no cable out there. Oof. We didn't have a phone because my dad was like, "We don't need one." And
we can walk to the store.
We had no neighbors. I mean, I had the radio.
Yeah.
Was all that I had. And whenever I started,
Nessman.
I did. And I mean, you laugh, and I know, but I like that I've had the same rock DJ my whole life.
Yeah.
I do. And there is something to be said for that. But
yeah.
But like, I remember thinking, like, getting into college and finding all of this music that I had no idea about. And being like, where did you? No, Tech.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't guess I knew that.
But, and I'm like, well, how do you even find this stuff? How do you know if you're not? And now, like, you pick a service and you listen to it, and then they'll tell you, show you a lot of the.
Yeah, and a lot of times they don't get it right.
No,
like, it's like, oh, I like this genre, and they'll play me some shit that I hate. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Right.
I had a very, very loving relationship with my record. Owners, the record store owners,
sure.
They, would kind of tell you what you wanted. But, that was part of the best part for me before the internet was, you would go look at an album cover and you would go, oh, this is a really cool album cover. And I think that's what got me into artwork as well is, just kind of wanting to be inspired by some of those musicians and the art that they created. So.
That might be why I'm such a Journey fan.
Yeah.
The best album covers, man.
Yeah, I mean, and back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, before CDs like this big,
right? Yeah.
You had and I've gone
with the inserts, with the books.
I'm not going to say I got back into vinyl. I got into vinyl. Probably my brother brought me a record player for Christmas 5 or 6 years ago, and I probably have like 300 or 400 records now. I try not to pay full price for them. If it's a new album, like if, Jason Isbell puts out a new record, Sergio, I'll buy it. But I try and go, like anytime I'm out of town, I'll go to a used record store and I'll try and find, stuff. And I found some really cool shit like in Denver and New York City and Portland when I've been on trips or whatever. But you came up in the era of records and stuff.
Yeah, well, records and cassettes and CDs. I did all of it. I think my very first record that I ever bought was Kiss Alive 2 and Olivia Newton-John.
That's a combo.
Xanadu. So
that is a hell of a combo, man.
You bought that one copy of Xanadu.
Both of those are very cinematic because, like, Xanadu, literally a movie soundtrack, and Kiss. That was more as much about the image as it was.
They were Mattel. That was it. I have. Well, I still have. I have everything that I collected: the dolls, the trash can, my lunchbox, the backpack, all that stuff. But it was. I was at that age that I didn't understand that they had makeup on.
Sure.
So I remember getting a magazine, and it had half their face covered and. I remember just crying, and Peter Criss had just left the band, and they were more like superheroes,
right?
They
even had the show,
and that was the persona they put out. Like, so when you saw the video for like "Lick It Up," where you're like, "Fuck, they're ugly dudes."
Me and Lori, I think I've mentioned. I think I really should get my discount for. These veteran lunches because I stuck with Kiss all through the 80s.
You're proud Kiss horrible, Army veteran.
He is.
I am a Kiss Army veteran, but it was rough after the makeup came off. It was really bad.
Well, and it's and they weren't as cool anymore as far as like when because I mean they were sort of the progenitors to hair metal, but then when like you have bands that are so much more over the top, like Wasp and stuff like that. Fuck Like a Beast.
Well, and Ozzy, like going up against Ozzy back in the 80s,
but it was
had to be a little intimidating.
But I mean, you've stuck. I mean, you saw Kiss the last time they came into town. Right?
I've seen Kiss every chance that I could.
Nice.
Ever since '79, they came here on Halloween night, and there were flyers that were put in the newspaper telling your kids not to go to the concert. And my mom didn't let me go, and
what a bummer.
I cried just on Halloween night, dressed up as Peter Criss alone in my room.
So they let you dress as Peter Criss, but they didn't let
me go. My next door neighbor got to go, Jason, and he got to bring back, later after they got developed, but he had pictures, and he got me one of Peter Criss's drum set from there. But it was really, really upsetting. So ever since then, I've made it a point to go see Kiss every time.
How old were you in '79?
I was 6.
Yeah.
6, and your mom wouldn't let you go to a Kiss.
But I did get to go see the Tornado Jam soon after with Joan Jett. So that was my first concert.
So you were
now you're with Joan Jett. That's amazing.
So you're full on. You were full on music early age.
Yeah. My dad was a big Bob Dylan fan.
Oh, really? Okay.
My mom liked a lot of Joan Baez, that kind of stuff. And my brother forced everything from Rush to he was the first one that introduced me to punk rock. With like the Ramones.
Sure.
So
go ahead.
Well, timeline wise. Okay, I'm just trying to figure it all out. When were you breakdancing?
I don't know if I heard about that.
84, 85. I was a rubber band man.
You were like, in the early 80s, you were punk metal.
No, I was a kid. Well, it was weird. I have a picture. I can show you that 6th grade, 5th, 6th grade, both of those times, I would have like a parachute pants on and a crocus shirt.
Wow.
So it would be different things like that. I'd go see Twisted Sister, but then I'd come home and break dance with my friends because nobody else was into that style of music.
Right.
Well, and then a few years later, you have Anthrax and Public Enemy, teaming up.
Right.
I got into all that.
Did you do that? Was that you?
He inspired it.
I love that genre, though. All that stuff. I was a huge Anthrax fan.
Yeah. Run DMC and Aerosmith.
Run DMC. All that stuff.
Yeah.
Beastie Boys, the Beastie Boys were a punk rock band before they were,
New Deal lost its mind with the Beastie Boys.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
They're like, because they took them seriously. They're wow, they're really fighting for their right to party.
Right,
That's crazy.
Yeah. I remember being with Keenan Hoover and leaving Putt. I mean, my brothers, leaving Putt, listening to You Got to Fight for Your Right.
Yeah. God, I was a little older when I wasn't older. That had been out for a while when I first saw it. Because what did that come out? Like 86 or 87?
So it's like
when I saw it for the first time when I was like 10 on MTV or something, and I was like, "Your mom threw away your best porno mag." I can relate. Well, it wasn't a porno mag; it was a Sears catalog that I was jacking
it was the insert to a tampon box.
Oh, God damn it, that's gross.
I was just telling them that story.
But so you kind of alluded to like the artwork and stuff. When did you start doing art?
Well, that was mainly in high school.
Okay.
I was drawing a lot of Ramones stuff.
Okay.
I was really, really big into the Ramones. Yeah. And back then you had your Trapper Keeper, and so the front of it, you would, decorate.
Yeah.
And so I would spend a lot of time doing artwork for my Trapper Keeper, but I was doing that a lot in high school, and I didn't really date or have any friends.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I had a Kiss pinball machine, and so I either was playing pinball or I was doing art. Mm-hmm. And
damn, you couldn't make friends with a pinball machine?
I couldn't make friends at all with anybody. I was not a very approachable guy. I would go to shows, and I think that was my big thing. I would go to shows and nobody would talk to me. There was one kid in art class, Sammy Prado, that kind of would invite me to shows and give me flyers, and so I would go to shows and I wouldn't talk to anybody.
Right.
And I always kind of swore that, like, hey man, if I can ever break into that group, I'm going to make sure to talk to a kid every show. And
Nice.
so I think that's where I made a lot of friends when I was older. But, you know, art came from a very lonely place, and it's probably saved my life more than once, you know, just being able to escape and get through with art, whether it be music or whether it be with a paintbrush, you know, that's kind of saved.
Yeah. Well, and
Between the three of us, one of us really should have thought to bring some of your artwork and set it up here. I'm sorry
well,
didn't
you
do
know,
that.
I can always post a link to some stuff that I have, and then to your
Jme.
on the description for the
You can find
episode.
Jamie's art page. It's JME
art page. I'm really
on
bad
Facebook.
at selling myself, so
Well, it sells itself.
Well, you know, I mean,
and
that's why you'd make a terrible whore.
Tell me about it.
But
My kid actually jacked one of his paintings.
Oh, really?
This weekend.
Little
Yeah.
bastard.
I know. Well, it was one of his smaller Joyland paintings.
Oh, nice.
And my mom had wanted a larger print, and so Jamie was like, "I do have one, but see if she wants this little one framed." So I went and asked her, and my kid's like, "Mine." He's like, but apparently
there's no taking it away from him.
No, it's never worth it.
I do as much art for kids as possible.
That's awesome.
You know, so.
Well, apparently, and I'm sorry, but
no,
I didn't
you're
know
good.
this till later. He was upset because it says where the fun is, and it should say where the fun was.
Need a little pun in there.
Yeah, and my mom, I mean, he was dead serious, though.
Yeah.
He's because it's gone now, and he's not over it.
Yeah.
You know, Joyland is
I'm
gone.
not over it.
He
I
wasn't.
know, right?
He wasn't even there for the heyday.
Right, but I mean, it was.
But you
He
took
spent
him,
plenty of time at Joyland, and it had gotten way better than when
I hadn't been there in a long time.
Oh, it was way better than when I was a kid.
Wow.
Well,
that
they
sucks.
still had the cracked lion from 1970.
I wanted that
yeah.
fountain so bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what I wanted more than anything. I think it was one of the first things to go at the auction too.
Yeah. Oh really?
Yeah, that lion water fountain.
Yeah. So, so you had said like whenever you kind of got in the scene, you wanted to talk to everybody, and that's kind of people that I have met that know you. That was always your reputation, is like the guy who everybody knows, who's reached out to everybody. Like my buddy Logan Moore, who was a drummer for a band called Sergeant Steve Monday and the Sugar Witch. Him and his wife Ashton are good friends of mine. We were just talking about local music and stuff, and I think your name got brought up. He's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I think I bought like a tape off Jme." And when I was in high school or something, we'd go like hang out during lunch. You know, he'd like pick up kids from Lubbock High or something, and we'd hang out at like Renaissance or something. And that's so cool to me, that having a space for kids that are into music that maybe aren't, you know, that aren't like the jocks or the whatever, you know, that didn't fit in anywhere else.
I felt really weird and probably bad. I can't believe that some of the parents that let their kids come with me. You know, I drove a hearse most of the time.
I've heard
and
that.
If I didn't have a hearse and I had, you know, a painted van with, you know, bullhorns on the front, you know, and I'm just like, why did these parents let their kids leave with me?
Well, as many
you know?
kids as you were hanging out with, if you were doing anything inappropriate, word would have spread pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So I
tell
mean,
that to Michael Jackson's boys.
You know, whatever. Millions. Well, Jamie didn't have millions of dollars to throw at him too.
You did remind me real quick, though, give credit where credit is due. You were talking about Sergeant Steve Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Duhan
another
subs
friend of mine.
in with the band with Andres' Backyard
Oh, yeah,
Orchestra.
I heard that. I need to make sure me and Brian are at sometime hanging out, because I haven't seen Brian, and I saw him at the Flaming
never know
Lips
when he's
show.
coming. But dude, he's so fun.
Oh, yeah, I love Brian.
Yeah.
I didn't got to hang out with him as much post-COVID, just because, But me, him, and Logan were jamming kind of semi-regularly before COVID. But
nice.
Never found a bass player. Just me and Brian playing guitar and Logan on the drums, and then Logan moved. But so, not to bring up any bad memories or anything, but no. I mean,
all of them are bad memories now.
Well, you also, when you were booking shows, you had said you kind of had like a network of people that, you know, like, you know, all the way to El Paso, but it didn't. I know you and Brian Deneke were friends, and he was booking shows up there in Amarillo. Is that right? So y'all were kind of supporting each other back and forth?
You know, at that time, it was kind of like I hate saying this, it was kind of like an Underground Railroad type situation.
Yeah.
You know, it was before.
We got to get these punks down to Lubbock safely.
It was before the internet, and so it was a lot of. There was a magazine called Book Your Own Fucking Life that Maximum Rock and Roll put out.
I've heard of that.
And it would basically list the people from each city and each state, you know, that did different things, and so most of the time, someone would call me and I would go, okay, well, if you want to show in El Paso and Amarillo and Midland, you know, sometimes. Yeah. So we would all kind of share information. And so a lot of those guys that played bigger parts or the same parts that I played in Lubbock, I knew there. And I would contact them and say, hey, this band needs one on the next date. So we were able to fill in those, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday slots before they went to Austin or Dallas or Albuquerque.
Awesome. Much like what we try to do with the comics.
I mean, you know, when we can.
But I mean, like, it's Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland,
Odessa, San Angelo.
Because if you're not, otherwise, there's no point in coming to this area. Yeah, you know, it's not worth it. It's too far between. Yeah.
Well, we got to a point so much that some of the bands were skipping these bigger cities because they knew they could come to Lubbock and, you know, sell $400 or $500 in merch. Back then, when they were selling shirts for $5 or $7, you know,
that's awesome.
So they were starting to skip, and I was getting calls from bigger bands, and I was like, you don't understand, like this room this is like you know, it's a coffee shop and it's only like half the side of the coffee shop, and 75 kids in there seems like, you know, 3,000.
So I remember going there and seeing Iris.
Oh wow, that's awesome. What's the biggest show you ever booked here? Did it cap at about 100 or so, or did you get any bigger rooms than that?
Here?
Yeah.
Or anywhere.
I don't know. Like Lane Arnold that ran the Depot Warehouse, he basically, at that time, I didn't have any money for guarantee shows. So he would come to me and go, what's your opinion? Do you think I'm going to make my money back? Or I would beg for him to, you know, do a show. So, you know, there were some shows that I helped bring, but maybe I wasn't financially responsible for. But, you know, some of the Depot Warehouses, some of those bigger shows. I think I
saw Caroline Spine there.
Yeah. Man, it kind of, and what
Daisies. Caroline Spine.
Oh, really?
Tripping Daisies, Caroline
Tripping Daisy, I helped with
Fuel.
the guys
I saw Fuel there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, from Einstein's. They were doing the big Easter bash back then, and then it moved from a neighborhood block to a point where they had it out of the golf range. And there was about, I don't know, you know, 10,000 college kids out there, you know, burning couches and you know, we had done we had done some of those shows out there. I mean, I had to drive in to play that, and that's when they were still a nobody, and this little local band, Uncle Nasty, wouldn't get off the stage to let them play. So they drove all the way down here and didn't get to play.
Damn.
And so, you know, you look at, that's a band that later went on to play these huge festivals, you know.
Sure,
and,
Uncle
you know,
Nasty's like, it's my stage.
Lubbock had a chance to see him, you know, at this little thing for free at a golf station. And
why does Lubbock get everything good?
Well, you know, it's the same thing, and I remember even prior to COVID, like Jack White was supposed to come here again because he came here in 2014. He had another show. They canceled it because there was no pre-sale tickets sold. I think like Stone Temple Pilots with their new lead singer, that whoever's not Scott Weiland, canceled that show. It's people in Lubbock are weird about music a lot of times.
They come last second too.
Yeah,
you know?
They do.
I think it's one of those things that a lot of bands and a lot of promoters now are wanting to make sure that
Yeah.
they're paid in advance. It's not really about wanting to bring someone to make your town better or to make it fun. You know, to them, it's always been about money.
Yeah.
And I think when you have people in charge like that, it kind of takes the fun out of it. And I think people see through the bullshit and kind of quit coming.
Just like this Tacos and Tequila Festival.
Yeah.
I mean,
twice now.
Yeah, so I had to. I mean, you might have too. I had tickets to the Bad Religion Social Distortion, and it got canceled. I still haven't gotten my money back from that because my ex-wife fucked up my bank account. And I had to get a new debit card and all this stuff.
Well, I think they bank on that. You know,
they have to.
Okay, if you're not going to get your refund, look, we've made this extra money and we haven't had to do anything.
Yeah. And that would have been a really, I mean, obviously, you know, those bands were, you know, well past their prime, but it still would have been awesome to see them, to see like Mike Ness and Greg Graffin and their bands. But, you know, and then they were going to bring 311 here. And I had read somewhere, someone had said that they contacted 311's management and they're like, that show was never on the books for them. Like they never even had that show. So they were promoting it.
Before
which is just crazy to me, but
I can see it happening.
Yeah,
didn't they do that on the Brady Bunch? Didn't she promise Davy Jones for Homecoming?
Oh, probably. Yeah,
but he showed up.
Yeah. Well,
what the hell?
Because it was Marsha,
right?
Because it was Marsha.
If it had been Jan, he'd be like, hell
fuck
no.
Jan. But yeah, I mean, there is still cool stuff happening in Lubbock sometimes. I mean,
I think it's gotten better.
One of those things that and what makes me happy is you still have to go out and find it. It's not like the internet where it just gives it to you. So there are people doing great things in this town still that are more hidden. You know, I know that they were doing stuff out of the skate park. I know they're doing stuff out over you know, my friend Brandon Blair was doing his stuff. You know, there's
I know Jesse
spots.
Jarvis brings house shows.
Yeah.
You know,
I need to plug into that because I've been to a couple of house shows, but it's been most like that one. I think we ran into each other at when David Bazan, Pedro the Lion came here, and then John Vanderslice did a house show. But these are both like before COVID, so I haven't really been to anything like that.
It's hard for me to go to a show now because most of the time they call me sir, like as I'm walking around, like I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, excuse me, sir, you know, and
it's like I have pink hair, fucker.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I know what you mean. They're like, whose mom are you? I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah, but
not yours.
Yeah, I mean, you have kids that are probably the same age as some of those kids. I don't have any fucking kids.
Yeah,
so
stop bragging.
Well, I mean, my life is empty, and I'll never be fully happy. So there you go. Maybe someday.
You can borrow my kid.
I don't want to borrow your kid. Thank you. Maybe I was just focused on the, you know, like what my stepdad did. Just no kids of my own. Just had grandkids.
Right.
You
right.
know?
I hear
skip the kids, have the grandkids.
I tell you, grandkids are a lot better than the kid part.
Oh,
of
I'm sure.
You know,
so
but I love my kid, but you know, my grandkids are the most important thing. in my life.
For sure. So what are you working on now? What is your focus?
I'm trying to do some new stuff. I'm trying to sell some of my artwork on T-shirts.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I'm excited
you know, I'm
about
kind
that.
of trying to find a couple of people that are more willing to help me market myself because I'd rather just sit home and draw. I'm not good at doing the whole marketing or selling myself.
Right.
You know, so that's a hindrance, especially in a world today where it's all internet, you know, based, and coming from someone that's not that's always just kind of been a local guy. It's hard to get out on the internet and sell yourself.
Well, and it's flooded, like you know.
Yeah, guys with streetwear brands and stuff. Roy has worked with a couple of guys that have streetwear brands, and you know, it's hard to make a mark. But I mean, I feel like you've done a lot of cool shit, and I'm sure that you know, just finding a niche.
There are so many.
For me, it's just gotten to a point where, you know, I kind of had a health scare a couple of years back, I said that I didn't care about money anymore, and I wasn't going to care about any of that stuff. It was just that I was going to create something every day. Yeah, and I've kind of stuck with that plan, whether it's something that I've never done before.
Create a nuisance.
I'm just creating something every day, and it's been nice to kind of not worry about it. Occasionally at the end of the month, you start worrying about bills and, which we all have to worry about.
Sure,
But I was like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life just creating, and I'm not going to ever work for someone. My pride and my self-worth is worth more than any job or some guy screaming at me.
Yeah, sure.
And I know we can't all do that.
Well, you've got several talents to back
that's how
that
I'm
up.
going to either make my life work out or I'm not,
Well, I mean, it seems like you're making it work, and you've got a really cool girlfriend right now.
Yeah,
that's
she's great.
I think once you quit worrying about life, it kind of just settles down and everything kind of gets in the pocket, and it's a groove, and you just got to enjoy it. There was a lot of years that people that deal with depression or things of that nature, but go out and try something new. I tried comedy like you guys. I went out and did couple of those open mic stuff. I loved it, but just
You're natural, man.
new things like that and creating and getting out what you guys are doing with this podcast. I'm about to start a podcast.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
So there's some things like that it's just getting out and trying something new and having fun.
Yeah.
I think we get stuck in ruts where we've allowed the internet or our phones to keep us busy versus,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I it's so hard for me to just, because I've been, with my surgery that I had, I'm trying to spend more time at home healing and everything. It's so fucking hard for me to just sit and just watch TV or to read a book. I always just want to be doing something.
In front of the TV yesterday with a crossword puzzle book and a book. And I was like, I'm actually doing none of these things.
No,
I'm not watching TV. I'm not working the crossword book, and I'm not reading.
I mean, of all the things that I enjoy,
and my phone.
Of all the things I enjoy, I enjoy this. I just love talking to people, and that's why I love doing this podcast. I mean, me and Lori started doing this a few months ago.
Yeah, dude,
we
I
did it
love
audio only, and then Roy,
thanks, Roy.
Roy let us do video, so we're getting out to a slightly bigger audience.
Right.
So you do commission paintings. You've done a few for me. You've done one of mine. I'm gonna have to have you do a new one of me when I lose more weight because I'm fucking fat as fuck in the old one. I'm less fat now.
Well, I can always trim people down if they ask me to. I don't have to make it look exactly like the picture.
You did a really cool one of my grandfather for me. I'm going to get some prints done and give that to family members and stuff.
Christmas.
And then you did the Elliott Smith. But but you do commission portraits of, Yeah, so I mean, you're very reasonable pricing.
Very, very, and especially it makes good gifts as I do a lot of stuff for when people lose pets or when they lose a loved one. My turnaround time is so quick. That I can have it before a funeral or a couple of days after someone loses a pet. So I put those and prioritize those for people, but I'm definitely available for commissions to do work of
murals,
anything that you want. I do murals. I just did the Waylon Jennings one down in Littlefield.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go see that.
What's the name of the liquor store? Is it
Waymore's.
Yeah.
So
check that out in Littlefield.
Do you have anything you want to plug? I mean, there's Audrey's Backyard Orchestra, obviously.
I want to talk about just for a second.
Okay, sure, go for it.
Corey Evans, who I don't know, but
I've met him once in person. We've exchanged some messages. He's a good dude.
Yeah, and you and Corey's doing a podcast. Is about to start doing a podcast for Lubbock Creative, which my understanding is going to kind of be like an umbrella for the creative people of Lubbock kind of thing, is what kind of guest he's going to have on and things like that. And their band just wrote a jingle for that
we just did a jingle
night.
For them. And I did the album or the artwork for the cover of their podcast.
Nice.
So cool. That's something I would like to promote. But more than me, if I could have a chance to promote anything, it would be my amazing girlfriend Cindy, who just moved here from Midland. She's a hairstylist at Rock Paper Shears, and she does amazing. Crazy awesome hair, but she can also do little old lady hair, and she can do all types of hair. So she's not limited, but
you don't have
I would
to
definitely get
pink.
with her. She's more important to me, and making her feel welcomed in Lubbock.
That's awesome,
and
man.
bringing her art, because I've now found that art form of hairstyling is very much very artistic driven, and to see how
If you're good
creative
at it,
they
yeah.
get at it, and so.
Cindy Jeffries at Rock
Cindy
Paper
Jeffries
Shears.
at Rock Paper Shears,
Awesome.
hit her up. That's more than promoting myself. Me, if you want to find me, you'll find me, and I'll give you a good deal.
I'll post
and I'll do
links on
something,
the the description or the comments on the Facebook or the
Mention
YouTube
this
page.
podcast, and maybe you'll get a discount.
Yeah, I'll
We
give you a
didn't,
discount. I'll give you a discount if you mention this podcast.
Cindy might too.
Yeah,
Just
follow Andreas's Backyard Orchestra. Go see them live, and then come out to see comedy at Bar PM every Thursday.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to come out and
At least
I may even actually try to perform again.
Do
that
it.
was
I
so much
did. I
fun.
wish
You have
would.
so many
I
great
wish-
stories. You make us laugh our
people-
asses off
I
when we're
know.
hanging out at Lori's place.
I
fun.
quit doing it every time you tell a story because you are so funny. I mean,
It's not a competition.
I always go back, but
Well, I don't think that I'm a very funny person. I just think that I've been stuck in some funny situations. So just kind of
stuck
tell
or
those
put yourself
stories.
in.
Yeah.
So that's
but before we close, real quick, what is the deal with Judge Judy? What's your where did that start? Because I didn't know about this until I saw there was a song you posted on like MySpace or SoundCloud or some shit like probably 15 years ago plus about like your obsession with Judge Judy, and you've had a
I used
painting
to have
of
a
her.
little rap
Does Cindy
thing.
know about this?
Yeah, well, I've been trying to talk her into wearing a little robe
Robe and a
outfit,
doily
That's-
with a doily.
That's nice.
but Judge Judy's just one of those people that I have always admired. That I go, she gets paid millions of dollars to tell people
That they're
how
fucking
stupid they are, and like if you could pay me $1 million to just try to talk common sense to people, and tell them how I really feel, like that's the greatest job in the world.
dream
But
right there,
I've
yeah.
just always admired her because
Yeah.
she's kind of a no BS person,
Yeah.
and it's turned into where people think I have a secret crush.
Yeah.
I've done a couple of pinups of Judge Judy that I've drawn.
It's like, what
I have
secret?
a virgin Judge Judy hanging in my restroom, but like
I
How
remember.
have I missed this?
I
had no
remember. I
idea.
remember from your. Are you still at the same place?
yeah, I am.
Yeah, I
still.
remember the painting in your bathroom of Judge Judy.
That's awesome. Man, my
She's
bathroom's
just
so
someone that
boring.
I love, that I've respected,
Yeah.
and I watch her every day that I can.
Yeah, my mom does
awesome.
too. My mom does too.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and leave it there. But Jme Brock,
Thank
I'm
you for
Morgan.
coming,
Thank
man.
you.
Lori Amber.
Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All right.